Imagine, you enter a dimly lit chamber. The air smells of wax and stone. Candles flicker in heavy iron sconces, their flames bending in drafts you cannot see. Shadows move across the walls, and with them, the faint outline of carved symbols, some familiar, some strange, all of them carrying a weight you don't yet understand. Then comes the sound. A hammer striking wood. Once. Twice. 3 times. Each blow echoes like a heartbeat in the silence. You are not alone here. You feel the gaze of unseen figures, cloaked in darkness, their presence measured not in words but in silence. The lodge is waiting, and the ritual has begun. For centuries, outsiders have peered into this world with suspicion. Whispers pass through taverns and parliaments alike, that the Freemasons guarded terrible secrets, that their gatherings were not meetings but conspiracies, that their symbols were keys to hidden power. To the fearful, they were sorcerers in aprons; to the devout, heretics dressed as builders; to the suspicious, a secret order pulling strings behind kings and revolutions. But what truly lies behind the closed doors of a Masonic Lodge? Is it conspiracy, or something more human, yet stranger still? Step closer. Picture yourself walking slowly across the stone floor. Your footsteps echo softly, swallowed by the chamber's geometry. Each candle seems placed with intention, as though the very light follows rules you do not know. The lodge is not merely a room, it is a theater of symbols, a place where myth and ritual blur. The silence is not empty. It hums, like the hush before a prayer, like the stillness before a storm. You glance upward. Draped banners bear the emblems most associated with Masonry, the square and compass, joined at their points. A letter glows faintly at the center, sometimes AG, standing for geometry, sometimes God. Each interpretation opens another layer, another possible meaning. That is the genius of the craft, never one answer, always a riddle. Imagine being an outsider in the 18th century, hearing rumors of these lodges sprouting across Europe. You would hear tales of men gathering by candlelight, donning aprons like craftsmen, swearing oaths in hushed tones. No windows open to the street. No songs sung for the public. Only whispers. And where there is secrecy, there is suspicion. Was it sorcery? Treason? Or simply men protecting something they valued more than life itself? The first hammer stroke falls again in your memory. Boom. A knock at the very heart of history. The curtain of mystery does not exist by accident. Freemasonry thrives in ambiguity, feeding both fear and fascination. To the uninitiated, the shadows suggest danger. To the brother inside, they suggest protection, intimacy, meaning. Every myth about Freemasonry, that they command armies, that they worship strange gods, that they plot the fate of nations, sprang from this atmosphere of secrecy. Yet secrecy itself was never the ultimate goal. It was the vessel, the protective shell around a more delicate interior, the exploration of human virtue through symbol and story. But we are not yet inside that interior. We are still in the threshold, peering between light and shadow. Close your eyes. Imagine being blindfolded, standing in silence, a hand on your shoulder guiding you forward. You do not know where you are being led. You do not know what will be asked of you. Only that you have consented. That you have stepped willingly into the unknown. This is how countless initiates began their journey, heart racing, uncertain whether to fear or to hope. That moment, between darkness and revelation, is what gave Freemasonry its aura of mystery. It is not the secrets themselves that captivated outsiders, but the knowledge that there were secrets at all. For what is more powerful in human imagination than a closed door? And so, centuries of suspicion grew. Churches thundered against them, declaring the lodges nests of heresy. Monarchs outlawed them, fearing secret alliances beyond their control. Pamphlets spread tales of blood oaths and occult rites. And yet the lodges did not vanish. In fact, Their secrecy only drew more curious souls to knock upon their doors. A paradox. The more they were hidden, the more they were seen. Now, the chamber grows colder. The silence deepens. You sense history pressing close, centuries of rumor breathing down your neck. A voice breaks the stillness, a solemn intonation, ancient yet familiar. It is not loud, but it fills the chamber with authority. Who comes here? The question is timeless. It has been asked of kings, poets, merchants, and soldiers alike. All equal in the face of initiation. All strangers until they pass through the rite. The hammer strikes again, and the curtain begins to lift. The hammer's echo fades, but its rhythm lingers in your chest like an afterthought of thunder. The chamber around you breathes in silence, and then, without doors opening, without footsteps, the walls seem to dissolve. The flickering candlelight melts into sunlight, and the air shifts from wax and stone to fresh lime mortar and dust. You are standing now in the open expanse of a medieval worksite. The heartbeat of ritual has transformed into the heartbeat of hammer against chisel, of mallets ringing on rough blocks of stone. The scent is sharper here, freshly cut wood, damp earth, the acrid tang of iron tools. The world of secrecy is gone for a moment, replaced by the loud honesty of labor. This is where the story truly begins. Long before men in tailored coats gathered in lodges, there were builders. Not ordinary builders, but craftsmen who carved cathedrals so vast that even today, their spires scrape heaven with a confidence bordering on arrogance. Imagine watching them rise from the mud of medieval towns, colossal ribs of stone arching higher each year, cloisters stretching like frozen music, stained glass blooming with colored light. You feel the awe of those who first saw them, peasants who had known nothing taller than a church steeple staring open-mouthed at walls that seemed to touch the sky, nobles who saw in them proof of divine order. And behind that awe, the Masons, the brotherhood of builders. Step closer. See the scaffolding swaying in the wind, wooden beams lashed together with ropes, climbing toward heaven. Men move like ants upon it, hauling blocks that weigh more than oxen, balancing with a precision that makes your stomach lurch. Their hands are cracked, their faces streaked with lime dust, but their eyes carry something more than exhaustion, a quiet pride. For each stone laid is not merely a job, it is a prayer in rock, a sermon in mortar. These masons worked with secrets, though not the kind whispered in lodges. Their secrets were technical, practical, born of necessity. How to cut stones so it would bear impossible weight. How to measure angles so precise that towers would not topple. How to build arches that stood not by pushing outward but by pulling inward in perfect balance. To reveal too much to outsiders was to give away the very livelihood that kept food on their tables. And so, signs were made. Silent signs, to recognize who was trained and who was a pretender. A grip of the hand that marked one who had stood upon the scaffold. A word spoken softly, proving he had been taught by masters. These were not yet mystical symbols. They were wages, protection, survival. Picture yourself as a young mason in the year 1200. You are apprenticed to a master whose hands are as scarred as the stones he works. Each dawn, you rise in the chill and carry water, mix lime, sweep dust. Years pass before you touch chisel to stone unsupervised. When you finally do, your first cut feels like initiation, rough stone yielding to your will, the line between chaos and order carved by your hand. Your master nods, and in that nod is acknowledgement. You are no longer merely a boy with a hammer. You are becoming part of something larger. By night, the masons gather not in taverns, but in huts built beside the rising cathedrals. They call them lodges. Rough wooden structures where food is shared, plans drawn, secrets exchanged. Within those walls, the hierarchy is clear: apprentices, journeymen, masters. Each knows his place. Each knows that the craft is not just labor but knowledge, guarded and passed carefully from hand to hand, like a flame that must not go out. These lodges were not mysterious then. They were workshops, filled with smoke from cooking fires and the mutter of tired men. But unknowingly, they planted the seeds of something that would, centuries later, grow into the secretive brotherhood we glimpse in candlelight. Because knowledge, once guarded, acquires power. And power, once hidden, acquires myth. Pause here. Listen to the sounds around you. The chant of monks echoing from the half-built cathedral. The scrape of stone. The whispered exchange between masons, words you cannot catch, perhaps deliberately concealed. You realize that secrecy is not born in shadows, but in necessity. To survive as a craftsman was to protect what you knew. To reveal too much was to risk your place in the chain. And so the habit of silence, of signs and tokens, began. The medieval world was harsh. To be a mason was to walk between privilege and peril. You were not a peasant bound to fields, yet you were not a noble with land. You were free to travel, following work from town to town, cathedral to castle, but freedom itself bred suspicion. A man who roamed might be a vagabond, a spy, a sinner. To prove you belonged, you needed your tokens, your signs, your words. They marked you as a brother, part of a fraternity older than the stones themselves. And perhaps you feel the echo now, the same echo that centuries later would resound in oaths and rituals. A brotherhood that recognized itself in silence, in gesture, in symbol. Now look again at the cathedral. See the master's tracing board, a wooden plan etched with lines and curves. To untrained eyes, it is just geometry. To the masons, it is the very order of the universe captured in chalk. Arcs and angles, circles and compasses, tools that will later hang upon lodge walls as emblems of morality. But here, they are still practical, marks that tell men where to cut, where to place, how to build. Yet even practicality can become sacred when repeated enough, when surrounded by awe. It is no wonder, then, that centuries later, men who no longer laid stone would still gather, still wear aprons, still trace symbols upon wooden boards. The craft of stone gave way to the craft of meaning. And thus, from these dusty huts and scaffolds, Freemasonry was born. The cathedral stands complete. Its towers pierce the sky, its bells toll across valleys, its stained glass filters the sun into a kaleidoscope of colored fire. The masons step down from their scaffolds. The chisels are quiet. The mortar hardens, fixing their work into permanence. But history does not pause, and neither does the brotherhood. The lodges that once thrummed with the urgency of construction now fall silent. Cathedrals no longer rise in every town. Castles, once the symbols of noble might, grow obsolete in the face of gunpowder and cannon. The great age of stone building wanes, and with it, the masons face a question: what becomes of a fraternity when its craft is no longer needed? Imagine yourself standing in one of those lodges. The air smells still of smoke and sweat, but there are fewer men now. The great contracts have dwindled. Some drift into other trades, some vanish into poverty. Yet within these wooden walls, something curious happens. The signs, the grips, the words, once practical tokens of recognition among builders, begin to take on a life of their own. A square is not only a tool to measure stone, it becomes a symbol of uprightness, of honesty in dealings. A compass is no longer merely for drawing arcs, it becomes a reminder to measure desires, to keep passions within bounds. The tools of stonework begin to speak of the tools of the soul. This shift is subtle at first, almost accidental. A mason teaching his apprentice speaks of honesty as a kind of straight line, as firm as the edge of a square. A journeyman cautions another to temper his anger, as one draws a circle within the compass's reach. What begins as metaphor seeps into ritual, and what seeps into ritual hardens into tradition. You sense it, the transformation. The lodge, once a workshop, begins to feel like a temple. Now look around. The rough wooden boards have been polished. Candles flicker where once there were only cooking fires. A master rises not only to assign tasks but to give moral instruction, cloaked in the language of stone. The fraternity is no longer about raising walls of stone but about raising men, shaping them, chiseling away roughness, polishing the surface until it reflects something greater. This is the birth of speculative masonry. Symbolic masonry. It does not happen in one night, nor in one country. It unfolds across centuries, like mortar drying slowly. In England, in Scotland, in parts of France, lodges that once gathered craftsmen now welcome men of other trades, merchants, lawyers, scholars, even nobles. They come not to build but to belong, to take part in rituals that promise moral guidance and spiritual fraternity. The old Masons might frown at this. What does a lawyer know of stone? What does a noble know of scaffolding? And yet, these outsiders find meaning in the tools, in the oaths, in the mysteries. They see in Masonry a mirror of life itself. The cathedral, after all, was always more than a building. It was the very image of heaven on earth. Why should the craft of making it not also be a path to higher truth? Imagine being one of these new initiates in the 17th century. You stand where once only builders stood. You wear the apron, though your hands have never touched stone. You listen as the master speaks of the plumb line, not as a device to measure verticals, but as a reminder to walk upright before God and man. You swear an oath of secrecy, not to protect trade secrets, but to guard the sanctity of the lessons you are being given. The lodge shifts before your eyes. It is no longer a builder's hut but a symbolic temple. Each station, each chair, each candle now carries layers of meaning. The work is no longer stonework but soul work. And as the craft transforms, so too does its reputation. Outsiders whisper more than ever. If it is no longer about building, then what is it about? If men gather in secret not to cut stone but to speak of symbols, what are they plotting? What hidden doctrines do they guard? The answer is both simpler and stranger. They are building an inner cathedral, stone by stone, symbol by symbol. Pause. Picture the cathedral again, but this time inside yourself. Each lesson a block, each oath a foundation, each symbol a spire. This is the promise of symbolic masonry, that the true temple is not made of limestone but of men striving toward virtue. But secrecy is a double-edged sword. What protected wages in the past now fuels suspicion in the present. The church eyes these lodges with unease. Monarchs worry about men gathering outside their control. Pamphleteers begin to spread tales of conspiracies, of heresies, of rituals too dark to speak aloud. And yet, the fraternity grows. The more the world outside fears, the more men within find purpose. The lodge becomes a place where ideas can be exchanged without censors, where men of different classes can call each other brother, where the act of building becomes metaphor for the act of becoming. The stone is gone, but the craft endures. The room around you shifts again. The scaffolds and cathedrals fade, and in their place rises a chamber unlike any other. Not a church, though it borrows the solemnity of one. Not a courtroom, though it carries a sense of judgment. Not a tavern, though fellowship thrives within its walls. It is something in between, a place that belongs to itself, ruled not by king or bishop but by ritual. This is the Masonic Lodge. At first glance, it might appear simple. A rectangular room, perhaps paneled in wood, lit by candles or oil lamps. The furnishings are sparse, a few chairs, a table, a pedestal here and there. But pause. Look closer. Every detail, from the placement of a chair to the angle of a lamp, carries meaning. Nothing is by accident. You enter not through an open door but through ritual. The very act of crossing the threshold is symbolic, a reminder that to step inside is to leave the ordinary world behind. Outside you are a merchant, a scholar, a soldier, a nobleman. Inside you are simply a brother among brothers. Imagine standing in that doorway. Behind you, the noise of the street. Before you, the hush of the lodge. You feel the silence settle upon your shoulders like a cloak. And then you step forward. The floor beneath you is often patterned, sometimes tiled in black and white squares, a mosaic pavement. To the uninitiated, it is decorative. To the brother, it is a reminder of life's duality, light and dark, joy and sorrow, virtue and vice. Every step across it is a meditation on balance. Raise your eyes. At the far end of the lodge sits the master's chair, elevated slightly above the others. Not a throne, not a seat of domination, but a station of responsibility. From here the master guides the ritual, not as ruler but as conductor, ensuring that the harmony of the lodge remains unbroken. His gavel rests close at hand, its sharp rap echoing like a command to attention, like the heartbeat you first heard in the Chamber of Mystery. To either side are other officers, each with roles as carefully defined as the stones in a cathedral wall. One watches over the door, guarding entry. Another keeps the records, ensuring memory is preserved. Another tends the light, for without light the lodge is but an empty shell. Together they form the structure of the meeting, just as beams form the frame of a roof. But it is not only men who shape this space. The very objects here are teachers. On a table you see the square and compass, emblems of the craft. To an outsider they are tools. To those within, they are guides to living. The square, a reminder to deal fairly, to act justly, to measure actions against conscience. The compass, a reminder to keep passions within bounds, to let reason draw the circle of moderation. Side by side, they form the emblem most associated with Masonry, a symbol whose meaning deepens with each glance. Nearby rests the volume of sacred law, a Bible in Christian lands, the Quran, Torah, or other holy book elsewhere. Upon it oaths are sworn, binding not only words but souls. Its presence is not merely religious but symbolic, a reminder that Masonry, whatever its mysteries, acknowledges a higher order, a truth greater than any man. Candles burn at specific points, often 3, forming a triangle of light. To the uninitiated, they are simple flames. To the initiated, they are the eternal lights of wisdom, strength, and beauty, the triad upon which the lodge rests. Without one, the whole falters. Pause here. Feel the atmosphere. The air is warm with wax, alive with flickering light. Shadows move across the patterned floor, across symbols carved into wood and stone. Every detail whispers meaning, and together they form a language that is never spoken aloud yet always understood. The lodge is not large. It need not be. Its walls contain more than men. They contain centuries of memory, of repetition, of meaning layered upon meaning. To sit within them is to sit inside a living symbol. Now imagine the meeting begins. The gavel strikes, sharp and deliberate. The brothers rise, their movements practiced solemn. Words are spoken, not casual, not improvised, but phrases shaped by tradition, echoing those spoken by countless others before. The lodge is not a place of innovation but of continuity. Each word, each gesture is a thread in a tapestry stretching back through centuries. And yet, despite this solemnity, the lodge is also a place of fellowship. After the ritual, men relax, speak freely, share meals. The same chamber that moments before felt like a temple now feels like a hall of friendship. Laughter echoes where silence reigned. Jokes are told where oaths were sworn. This dual nature is the genius of the lodge, sacred and social, ritual and convivial, a place where men can strive toward ideals yet also enjoy the simple warmth of brotherhood. But secrecy wraps it all. No outsider sees this. The door remains closed, the guards vigilant. To the world beyond, the lodge is a blank wall, a locked door, a flicker of candlelight glimpsed through shutters. And so suspicion grows. What truly happens within? Is it religion in disguise? Politics in secret? A plot? Step back and breathe. You now understand the paradox. The lodge is both ordinary and extraordinary, both a room and a temple, both a meeting hall and a stage of symbols. It is not what the fearful imagine, yet it is stranger still. Because in the lodge, every object speaks. The gavel falls again. the laughter fades. Candles flicker, shadows lengthen, and the warmth of fellowship tightens back into solemn silence. It is here, in this moment, that the weight of belonging presses most heavily upon a man. For in the lodge, words are not thrown about lightly. Words are bound. Imagine yourself standing at the center of the room, the eyes of every brother upon you. Your hands tremble slightly, though you try to still them. You are about to swear the oath, an oath that has been spoken for centuries, an oath that binds you not only to secrecy but to brotherhood, loyalty, and truth. The room grows utterly still. A book lies open before you, the sacred volume of your tradition. Upon it rests the square and compass. The master speaks in a low, deliberate tone, each syllable deliberate, as if weighed before being released. He asks if you will swear, without hesitation, to guard the mysteries of the lodge. This is no idle promise. The words carry gravity, and with them, images of dire consequence. To break the oath is not merely to betray trust but to invite punishment, sometimes described in language so vivid it makes your breath catch. Punishments of the body, of the soul, of memory itself. The lodge does not rely upon laws of kings or courts. It relies upon the power of conscience, sharpened by solemn words. Close your eyes and feel the moment. You place your hand upon the book. The symbols press cold against your skin. You repeat the words you are given, words that link you not only to the brothers in this room but to countless men before you, across centuries, across nations. You swear to secrecy. You swear to silence. You swear that the secrets entrusted to you will remain guarded, even unto death. Why such severity? Why demand silence at so high a cost? The answer lies partly in history. In the days of operative Masons, secrecy meant livelihood. To reveal the techniques of construction was to weaken the guild, to invite impostors, to reduce the value of one's work. But as the craft became symbolic, the need for secrecy shifted. It was no longer about wages but about meaning. The oath transformed into a sacred covenant, not merely to protect knowledge but to protect the sanctity of the experience itself. Consider this. A ritual only holds power if it remains mysterious. If you walk into a lodge already knowing every word, every gesture, then the transformation is hollow. The oath of silence ensures that each initiate encounters the unknown as if for the first time, wrapped in suspense, trembling at the threshold. The silence is part of the spell. But the oath is more than preservation. It is discipline. In a world where men talk freely, boasting of deeds, spilling secrets in taverns, the Mason is called to silence. He learns to weigh his words, to guard his tongue, to respect the boundary between what may be spoken and what must remain hidden. In this discipline lies a deeper lesson, that speech is sacred. That words, once given, cannot be reclaimed. Pause and reflect. How often do we speak without thought? How often do we let slip what should have been held back? The oath teaches restraint, not only about the mysteries of the lodge, but about life itself. Silence becomes a virtue. To keep one's word, to hold one's tongue, to let truth be guarded rather than squandered, these are lessons that shape character. Yet silence has another effect. It draws suspicion. For centuries, outsiders have been unnerved by the oath. They hear whispers of bloody penalties, of gruesome vows, and they recoil. They see men leaving lodges with sealed lips and imagine conspiracies. What is so important that it must be hidden under threat of death? The imagination runs wild. And perhaps the Masons did little to dispel it, for secrecy itself became a kind of power. The less said, the more believed. Picture yourself walking out of the lodge after taking the oath. The night is cool, the stars sharp against the sky. A neighbor asks casually, "What did you see inside?" And you, bound by silence, can only smile and say nothing. The mystery deepens in their mind. And thus the oath, while binding men together within, also sets them apart without. It builds a wall of silence around the fraternity, a wall through which only the initiated may pass. But remember, the oath is not only about secrecy. It is also about loyalty. The words you spoke were not merely promises to hold symbols and rituals in silence. They were pledges of fidelity to your brothers. That you will aid them, defend them, stand by them. That when you recognize a brother in need, by word or sign, you will not turn away. The oath binds men not only to silence but to one another. Imagine centuries of men swearing those same words, kings and commoners, scholars and soldiers, poets and merchants. Each placing their hand upon the sacred volume, each repeating the vow, each binding themselves to a fraternity that stretches across time. The silence becomes a chain linking them all, invisible yet unbreakable. The lodge remains still as you finish the words. The gavel strikes once, sealing the oath. A weight settles upon you, not heavy, but profound. You feel it in your chest, in your very breath, the knowledge that you are no longer only yourself. You are part of something larger. Your voice is no longer yours alone. From this moment, silence is not emptiness. It is belonging. The gavel falls into stillness. The oath lingers in the air, like smoke that refuses to dissipate. And then, almost imperceptibly, the lodge changes its focus. The silence does not end, but it takes on a new texture, not the silence of secrecy, but the silence of instruction. For now the initiate must be shown the working tools of the craft. A small chest is opened. Upon a cloth of deep blue are laid the tools of a mason. To the eye of the uninitiated they are simple, rough wooden handles, metal edges dulled by time. But here, in this place, they shine with meaning greater than gold. The master rises, his voice slow, deliberate, echoing in the chamber. These are the implements of our ancient craft. But today, they will build not cathedrals, but men. He lifts the square first. A tool of geometry, simple in form, 2 arms fixed at a right angle. To the builder, it ensures that stones are cut true, that walls rise straight, that a cathedral's tower does not lean. To the brotherhood, it becomes a mirror of conscience. The square reminds the mason to act justly, to treat each man with fairness, to let his dealings be measured by the right angle of truth. Imagine holding it. The wood is smooth from centuries of hands, the angle exact, unyielding. You feel the weight, not heavy, but certain, a weight that says this is the measure by which you will be measured. Next, the compass. 2 slender arms joined at a hinge, able to inscribe circles upon stone. To the builder, it is a tool of precision, marking the boundaries of a design. To the mason, it is the emblem of restraint. With it he draws a circle around his passions, his desires, keeping them within bounds. The compass whispers of balance, between indulgence and denial, between chaos and order. Hold it in your mind. Feel its points scratch upon the tracing board, leaving behind not merely arcs but lessons. Every circle drawn is a reminder that man himself must be circumscribed by virtue. Then comes the level. A beam with a plumb at its center, ensuring that stones are laid evenly. In the builder's hand, it guarantees harmony. In the mason's hand, it speaks of equality. The level reminds each brother that, whatever their rank outside, within the lodge all stand upon the same plane. The noble and the merchant, the soldier and the poet, are equal here, their differences smoothed as if by the tool itself. Picture the moment. The master moves from man to man, showing the level, reminding each that pride has no place in this chamber. The lodge becomes a place where men are leveled, where brotherhood is built not upon wealth or title but upon shared humanity. And finally the plumb. A cord with a weight at its end, pointing unwaveringly to the earth. To the builder, it ensures that walls rise true, that no tower leans, that no arch fails. To the mason, it speaks of integrity, of uprightness in word and deed, of living aligned with the unseen axis of truth. To walk upright is not merely to stand tall, but to live so that one's actions do not sway with every passing wind. The master holds it aloft, the weight swinging gently in the candlelight, a line from earth to heaven. The room is silent as each brother reflects on its meaning. For here, in this simple tool, lies the demand of a lifetime, to walk upright before God and man. Pause. Breathe. Look again at the table. The tools are ordinary: square, compass, level, plumb. Any builder might own them. But here they are more than wood and metal. They are metaphors made flesh, symbols that shape not stone but soul. This is the genius of Masonry, to take what is common and reveal what is hidden within it. Think of a cathedral. Every soaring arch, every balanced wall, every pointed spire depends upon these tools. Without them, the building collapses. So too with life. Without justice, restraint, equality, integrity, without the lessons embodied in these tools, the life of man collapses into ruin. And so, the initiate learns. He does not build in stone, but he builds nonetheless. Each decision, each act is a stone laid in the cathedral of his character. The tools guide his hand, unseen but ever present. But there is more. For each tool also speaks of time. They remind the mason that he is part of a chain stretching backward and forward. The same square once cut stone for cathedrals. The same compass drew arcs on tracing boards centuries ago. The same plumb line ensured towers did not sway in winds long past. To hold them is to touch history, to feel continuity. The tools become bridges between the operative and the speculative, between the masons who built with stone and the masons who build with symbols. Outside the lodge, the world may laugh. What use is a square when you no longer cut stone? What use is a compass when you no longer design arches? But inside, the brothers smile. For they know the tools are not relics but revelations. Their usefulness is not diminished but transformed. The master places the tools back upon the cloth. His gaze sweeps across the lodge. His words linger. Let these guide your hand, your heart, your life. For we are builders still, but the temples we raise are within. The candles gutter low, their flames bowing as though the room itself holds its breath. The master's voice fades into silence. All eyes turn toward you, the initiate, standing unsteady at the threshold of transformation. The tools have been shown, the oath prepared, but none of it carries weight until you endure the passage. This is the moment when a man is unmade and remade. Imagine, hands guide you gently, firmly. A cloth is placed over your eyes. Blindfolded, you are plunged into darkness. Not the casual darkness of night, but a crafted darkness, designed to disorient, to strip you of certainty. The world disappears. You no longer see the tiled floor, the solemn faces, the candlelit walls. You are alone with your heartbeat. Why the blindfold? Because knowledge cannot be inherited, it must be earned. To enter Masonry, one must first know ignorance. To reach light, one must first endure darkness. You feel the room shift around you. Every sound grows sharper, the shuffle of feet on stone, the creak of timber, the whisper of robes. Somewhere nearby, the steady rhythm of a gavel strikes, once, twice, 3 times. Each blow echoes like a summons from the very heart of history. A voice asks, "Who comes here?" The question pierces the darkness. You do not answer alone. Someone, your guide, your sponsor, answers for you. A seeker, who comes in darkness, desiring light. Those words linger. Darkness. Light. Already you sense that the ritual is not merely about secrecy but about transformation, about death and rebirth. You are the seeker, blind, vulnerable, stripped of pride, reduced to a state of symbolic poverty. You have nothing but the willingness to walk forward. The guide places your hand upon his arm. He leads you across the floor. Each step is hesitant, your foot feeling the ground before it commits. Without sight, trust becomes your only compass. The guide whispers commands: stop, step, kneel. You obey. Not because you are weak, but because you have chosen to surrender control, to be shaped by the experience. Then comes the sound of metal. A point, sharp and cold, touches your bare skin. The tip rests against your chest, near your heart. It is not deep, not enough to wound, but enough to remind you of mortality. The lesson is clear: this is not play acting. This is an oath bound by life itself. You are asked again, will you proceed? Do you accept? Do you swear secrecy, loyalty, devotion, even at the cost of your life? In that moment your mouth is dry. Your voice trembles. But you say yes. For to refuse is to retreat into ignorance, and you have come seeking light. The blindfold presses against your eyes. The chamber is silent but for the crackle of candles. Then the oath is spoken. You repeat it word for word, your voice barely more than a whisper, yet each syllable feels as though carved into stone. The words bind you, tie you invisibly to every man who has spoken them before. And then, silence. The Master speaks. Let there be light. The blindfold is removed. Your eyes sting. The sudden blaze of candles dazzles you. For a moment, all is blur and brilliance. Then shapes emerge, faces around you solemn, watchful. Symbols on the walls, gleaming in the flicker. Tools upon the table, sharp with meaning. You gasp not at their strangeness, but at their familiarity, as though you have always known them, only forgotten. This is the symbolic rebirth. Blindness gives way to sight. Darkness gives way to light. You are no longer who you were when you entered. You are remade. Pause and feel the weight of this moment. For centuries, men have stood here, blindfolded, trembling, then reborn into the fraternity. Kings, poets, philosophers, soldiers, all reduced to the same vulnerability, all lifted into the same brotherhood. The ritual does not care for status. It cares only for sincerity. But the initiation is not finished. You are led around the lodge, made to stop at specific stations. At each, questions are asked, lessons given. You kneel, you rise, you repeat words that sound at once ancient and immediate. Every gesture, every step carries meaning. You are not wandering at random. You are tracing a path mapped long ago, a path walked by countless others. The lodge becomes a labyrinth, each corner holding a lesson, each pause an encounter with symbol. One moment you are shown the rough ashlar, an unhewn block of stone, jagged, imperfect. It represents what you are now, rough, unfinished, in need of shaping. Later you are shown the perfect ashlar, smooth, polished, ready for the temple. That is what you must become. The message is clear. Initiation is not an end but a beginning, a call to labor upon yourself as the mason labors upon stone. The ritual is long, deliberate, heavy with pauses. It is designed not to be watched but to be lived. Outsiders may laugh, may call it theater. But you know, standing there with trembling hands and pounding heart, that it is more than theater. It is a mirror held up to your soul. At last, the circuit complete, the Master speaks again. The gavel strikes thrice. You are welcomed as a brother. The room, which before seemed cold and watchful, now feels warm, alive. Faces that once judged now smile. Hands reach out, grips exchanged, words whispered. You are embraced. The journey through darkness has led you into belonging. And yet, even in this moment of welcome, you understand the deeper truth. Initiation is not merely about joining a group. It is about beginning a lifelong work. The apron placed upon you is not a costume but a uniform. The tools shown are not decorations but commandments. The light you have been given is not a gift but a responsibility. You are no longer in darkness. But the light itself will demand labor. The candles glow steady now, their flames less fierce, more constant. You sit among brothers, the apron tied around your waist, the weight of the oath still pressing lightly on your chest. And then, as your breath begins to steady, you realize, this is not the end. It is the beginning. For Masonry is not a single step, but a staircase. The lodge is a school, a theater, a temple, but most of all, it is a journey. Each man who enters does not simply swear once and depart. He climbs, degree by degree, through layers of symbol and meaning. The path is deliberate, measured, like the building of a tower stone by stone. The first degree, which you have just endured, is called entered apprentice. It is the initiation, the moment of darkness into light, the rebirth into fraternity. Here you are rough stone, unshaped, full of potential but not yet polished. Your lessons are simple, foundational: obedience, secrecy, the value of labor, the dignity of humility. You are taught the tools of basic craft: the gavel to break off rough edges, the chisel to shape character, the 24-inch gauge to measure the hours of your day. These are not yet lofty philosophies. They are simple truths, carved deep so they will not be forgotten. But the lodge does not leave a man here. After a season of learning, of proving loyalty, of demonstrating willingness, you are called to the next degree, fellow craft. Here, the symbolism deepens. No longer merely an apprentice learning obedience, you are now a workman, a craftsman of meaning. The tools placed in your hands are those of geometry and architecture. The lessons shift from moral basics to intellectual pursuits. You are taught to value the liberal arts, to see in arithmetic and music, in grammar and rhetoric, reflections of universal order. You are told that the world itself is a building, and man is both its tenant and its builder. Pause for a moment. Imagine yourself kneeling again, blindfolded once more, the ritual beginning anew. But this time, the darkness is not ignorance but preparation for deeper light. The words spoken to you are more complex, the symbols more layered. The journey is no longer about obedience alone but about knowledge. The fellow craft degree is a reminder that Masonry is not only a school of morality but of understanding, that to be a Mason is to pursue truth wherever it may be found, in stone, in star, in scripture. And yet there is a further step still. The third degree, Master Mason. The highest of the Blue Lodge, the summit of the symbolic journey. It is here that Masonry reveals its most profound drama. For the Master Mason degree is not merely instruction, it is theater of life and death. You are led through ritual that reenacts the legend of Hiram Abiff, the architect of Solomon's temple, betrayed and slain, yet remembered and resurrected in symbol. You are made to experience death, symbolic, yet deeply affecting. You are laid low, struck down, left in darkness. And then, by the grip of a brother's hand, you are raised again, reborn not merely into light but into immortality of meaning. The lesson is unmistakable: all men die. But the Mason, like Hiram, is raised into a brotherhood that transcends the grave. His work, like the temple, endures. His fidelity, like the tools of the craft, remains. Pause and imagine the weight of that moment. To be lifted from symbolic death by the hand of a brother, to feel the embrace of fellowship as assurance that no grave is final. It is not merely ritual, it is comfort, a promise whispered across centuries, that though the body falls, the work continues, the spirit rises. This is the journey through the 3 degrees, the core of Masonry, the heart of its symbolism. Apprentice, craftsman, master. Birth, growth, death and rebirth. The story of every man told through tools, gestures, words. But the path does not end even there. Beyond the Blue Lodge lie further degrees, systems of deeper allegory, the Royal Arch, the Scottish Rite, the York Rite, the mysteries of chivalric orders and philosophical teachings. Each adds new layers, new symbols, new dramas. Some explore the building of Solomon's temple in greater detail. Others delve into Christian chivalry, or into mystical interpretations of Scripture. Each degree is another step upon the staircase, rising higher, reaching further. Imagine standing at the base of this staircase, looking upward. Each step is lit by candlelight, each landing carved with strange symbols, each door closed until you prove worthy to open it. The journey is endless, for Masonry insists that no man ever completes the work. To be a Mason is to be always building, always seeking, always climbing. Yet the 3 first degrees remain the core, the foundation. Without them, the higher degrees are empty. With them, every further lesson finds its root. The lodge breathes again. The gavel falls. Brothers rise in unison. You feel the weight of the apron upon you, the warmth of the hands that grip yours, the echoes of words you scarcely yet understand. You are no longer at the threshold. You are upon the path. The degrees stretch before you, not as burdens but as invitations. And as you sit in the flickering glow, you realize the truth. Masonry is not about arrival. It is about the journey. The lodge is quiet again. Candles breathe their steady light, shadows bending along the mosaic floor. You sit among brothers, still thinking of the path of degrees, the endless staircase of knowledge. And then you notice something small, almost invisible. The way one man grips another's hand, the way fingers curl, the way eyes meet and hold the moment longer than chance requires. It is subtle, fleeting, gone before you can name it. But you sense its weight. It is a code, a sign, a language spoken without words. These are the secret gestures of Masonry. From the beginning, the craft required recognition. Think again of the medieval Mason, wandering from town to town, cathedral to cathedral. He carried no papers of reference, no written license. His worth was in his hands, in his knowledge, but how to prove it to strangers? How to show that he had been apprenticed, trained, passed, accepted? Words could be forged, letters faked. But a grip, a sign, a gesture, those could be guarded. They could be given only to the worthy. So the Masons devised their codes. A word whispered at the right moment, a handshake that only a trained hand could reproduce, a sign of the body that could be made in darkness or at distance. These were their passports, their guarantees, their wages. With them, a brother could walk into a lodge far from home and be recognized as kin. Without them, he was no better than an impostor. Imagine yourself centuries ago, arriving weary at a town where the cathedral rises in scaffolds. You approach the mason's hut, knock upon the door. Suspicious eyes look you over. You are asked for the sign. You give it, a movement of the hand, a pressure of the grip. Their suspicion softens. You are invited in, given bread, a bed, a place among them. All because of a gesture invisible to outsiders. Now return to the symbolic lodge. The old need for wages has passed, but the gestures remain. They are taught in ritual, passed from hand to hand, whispered from mouth to ear. Each degree has its own word, its own grip, its own sign. To learn them is to advance, to use them is to belong. Pause and reflect. Why do these gestures matter? Why not simply declare, openly, I am a Mason, because the world outside has not always been kind. In some ages, Masonry was outlawed, its meetings forbidden, its members hunted. In those times, secrecy was survival. A gesture could admit you to safety. A word could summon help. But beyond survival, there is something deeper. The gesture is not merely practical, it is symbolic. A handshake is not only a test, it is a bond. Fingers interlock, palms press, strength meets strength. In that grip, a promise is exchanged, you are not alone. Imagine the moment, you meet a stranger, a man whose face you do not know, whose name means nothing. Yet with a single word, a single sign, you both recognize the invisible chain that binds you. You feel the grip, you hear the word, and suddenly you are no longer strangers. You are brothers. The gestures extend beyond hands. There are signs made by the body, by the arms, by the posture. Some are dramatic, echoing ancient ritual dramas. Others are subtle, barely more than a motion of the fingers. All carry layers of meaning. To the unknowing, they are invisible. To the initiated, they speak volumes. Consider how powerful this is. In a crowded room, a Mason can recognize another without a word. In a foreign land, in a time of danger, a brother can seek aid with a gesture no outsider understands. It is language hidden in plain sight, a vocabulary of loyalty. And yet, like the oath, it draws suspicion. Outsiders hear of secret handshakes and imagine conspiracies. They picture politicians clasping hands under the table, exchanging signs that promise favors. They see judges, merchants, generals, bound not by law but by grip and word. Rumors bloom. Are these gestures tokens of brotherhood, or of corruption? The truth is more human, more subtle. The gestures are bonds, not bribes. They are assurances of trust, not licenses for treachery. They are ways of saying, I recognize you. I know the silence you have kept, the path you have walked. Pause. Look down at your own hands. Imagine them learning a handshake that has been passed for centuries, from mason to mason, from master to apprentice, from brother to brother. Feel the pressure, the warmth, the unspoken vow. That is the language of Masonry, not thunderous proclamations, but quiet signs that bind men across time. And so the gestures remain, simple yet profound. They survive not because they are needed for wages, not because they are weapons against enemies, but because they are the living threads of continuity. They remind each Mason that he is part of a body larger than himself, a chain of hands stretching backward to the builders of cathedrals and forward to brothers not yet born. In this, the gestures are more than recognition. They are memory made flesh. The lodge is still. The gestures, the grips, the whispered words have been exchanged and remembered. But now the master raises his hand, and the air shifts once more. The lodge is no longer only this chamber, with its tiled floor and flickering candles. The walls dissolve, the shadows stretch, and before your mind's eye rises something vast, ancient, luminous. You stand at the threshold of Solomon's temple. It gleams in golden light. Pillars rise impossibly tall, their capitals carved with lilies and pomegranates, their shafts smooth as polished bronze. The doors, plated in gold, swing open to reveal courts paved with marble, altars heavy with sacrifice, lamps burning with eternal flame. The air smells of cedar from Lebanon, of incense rising in sweet clouds, of dust trampled by thousands of feet coming to worship. This, the scriptures tell, was the house of the Lord, the dwelling place of the divine on earth. But to the Freemason, it is more than a biblical memory. It is the perfect building, the eternal blueprint, the symbol of order, wisdom, and beauty. Why Solomon's temple? Because it was said to be built not by kings, nor priests, nor prophets, but by craftsmen. And chief among them, Hiram Abiff, the master architect, the man whose story echoes in the master mason's degree. The temple stands as the ultimate union of sacred purpose and human skill, where geometry served God, and stone carried the weight of heaven's design. Pause and imagine yourself walking its courts. The sound of chants echoes from the inner chambers. Priests in linen garments move with precision, their feet silent on polished stone. Sunlight glints off vessels of beaten gold. Every measurement, every stone, every carving has meaning. The temple is not random, not chaotic. It is proportion, harmony, balance, the very principles the Mason seeks to embody. In the lodge, Solomon's temple is not recreated with stone and gold, but with symbol and ritual. The room itself becomes an echo of that ancient house. The two great pillars you saw upon entering, they are not mere supports, but reminders of the temple's entrance, guardians of wisdom and strength. The mosaic pavement beneath your feet is not only decorative, but an echo of the floor of the holy place. The lights burning at the corners are not only candles, but the reflections of the seven-branched lamp that once burned in Jerusalem. Every meeting of the lodge, in its own way, is a rebuilding of Solomon's temple. Not in Jerusalem, but in the heart of each Mason. And why rebuild it? Because the temple was destroyed. Twice, the holy house fell to conquerors. Its stones were toppled, its treasures looted, its courts left desolate. For the Mason, this destruction is not only history, it is allegory. It is the reminder that no building of stone endures forever. Only the temple within, built of virtue and knowledge, can withstand time's ruin. Picture the lesson: you are the builder of your own temple. Your body, your soul, your life are the stones. Each act of justice, each word of truth, each restraint of passion is a pillar, a wall, a roof. You may never see Solomon's temple standing in gold and cedar, but you are commanded to raise its likeness within yourself. And yet, the ideal of Solomon's temple is more than personal. It is communal. For the temple was not built by one man alone. It required thousands: masons, carpenters, smiths, laborers, overseers, each contributing his portion, each trusting the plan of the master. So too with Masonry. A lodge is a miniature temple, raised not by one but by many, each member a stone fitted into place. Alone, a stone is nothing. Together, they form the house of the Spirit. But there is also mystery. Legends whisper that within Solomon's temple were hidden treasures: the Ark of the Covenant, the tablets of the law, perhaps even wisdom from before the flood. Some say secret vaults lay beneath it, chambers where mysteries of heaven and earth were stored. For centuries, seekers of knowledge, alchemists, Kabbalists, mystics, dreamed of recovering what lay hidden in its depths. Masons, inheriting these stories, wove them into their rituals, turning the temple into not only a symbol of building but of searching. You can almost hear the echoes now: footsteps descending into hidden vaults, torches flickering against stone walls, a chest uncovered, a scroll unrolled, secrets revealed in dim light. Whether these vaults ever existed matters less than what they represent: the eternal human hunger for hidden wisdom, for truth buried and waiting to be uncovered. And so Solomon's temple, though long gone, stands taller than any cathedral. Not in stone, but in symbol. Not in Jerusalem, but in every lodge. It is the eternal blueprint, the ideal against which every Mason measures himself. Pause once more. Feel the coolness of the marble beneath your feet, the height of the pillars above your head. Hear the murmur of chants, the ring of metal tools shaping stone. Then let the vision fade, and the lodge returns: the wooden chairs, the tiled floor, the flickering candles. Yet now you see them differently. The lodge is no longer small or simple. It is vast. It is the temple reborn in miniature, an echo of the sacred house that once stood at the heart of Israel, and that now stands in the heart of Masonry. The lesson lingers: you are not only a man, you are a builder. And the temple you build is both within yourself and among your brothers. Stone crumbles. Gold fades. But the temple of meaning, raised degree by degree, oath by oath, endures. The image of Solomon's temple fades, but in its place, a glow remains. Not the dazzling blaze of gold and cedar, but a gentler illumination. 3 candles burn within the lodge, steady, unwavering, their flames swaying slightly in the breath of silence. At first glance, they seem ordinary. A triangle of light in the dim chamber, nothing more. Yet in Masonry, nothing is ordinary. These 3 lights are among the most central of all symbols, their meaning layered, their presence indispensable. Without them, the lodge is incomplete. Step closer. Watch how their flames bend, how shadows fall differently depending on where you stand. They do not simply light the room, they shape it. They define the very boundaries of the sacred space. For the lodge is not a lodge unless these 3 lights are present, burning, bearing witness. What do they mean? In one tradition, they represent the 3 great officers of the lodge: the master in the east, the senior warden in the west, the junior warden in the south. Each light is a reflection of duty, a flame that guides not by authority alone but by responsibility. Without the master's wisdom, the lodge would wander. Without the warden's balance, the harmony would fracture. Together, they form a triangle of governance, not domination but order. In another tradition, the lights are not officers, but virtues: wisdom, strength, and beauty. Wisdom to conceive, strength to support, beauty to adorn. Together they are the triad of building, the qualities required to raise not only temples but lives. Wisdom alone cannot build, strength alone cannot sustain, beauty alone cannot inspire. Only together do they create harmony. Pause and let those words settle. Wisdom, strength, beauty. They sound simple, but each carries depth. Wisdom is more than cleverness. It is foresight, the ability to see the plan before the stone is laid. Strength is more than brute force. It is perseverance, the will to endure when scaffolds tremble. Beauty is more than ornament. It is proportion, harmony, the quality that turns a pile of stones into a cathedral. Each flame you see embodies one of these qualities, burning steadily as a reminder of balance. And there is yet another meaning. For some, the three lights echo the great lights of heaven, the sun, the moon, and the stars. The sun in the east, rising with the dawn, illuminating the day. The moon in the west, reflecting borrowed light, guiding travelers by night. And the stars, scattered across the firmament, eternal, mysterious, endless. Together, they remind the Mason that his lodge is not confined by walls. It is a reflection of the cosmos itself, a microcosm of the greater order above. Imagine the effect upon the initiate. He has just been brought from darkness to light, the blindfold removed, his eyes still stinging. The first thing he sees are these flames, burning in solemn silence. They are not random candles. They are lessons. They are beacons. They are the very definition of the lodge. But the three lights are not only symbolic. They are functional. They frame the ritual, guide the motions, anchor the rhythm of the ceremony. The master rises in the east, his words bathed in the glow of the eastern flame. The wardens speak from west and south, their stations marked by light. Every motion of the lodge is choreographed around this luminous triangle. Step back and look again. The room itself becomes geometry, a living diagram. The lights form a triangle, a symbol of stability, of perfection. The triangle has no weakness, no collapse. It is the simplest and strongest of shapes. And here, the lodge itself is built upon that form, its very heart glowing in three flames. Outsiders have wondered at this. Why 3? Why always 3? Why not 4 or 7 or 12? The answer lies in Masonry's love of balance, proportion, harmony. 3 is the number of beginning, middle, and end, of birth, life, and death, of past, present, and future. To place 3 lights in the lodge is to acknowledge that all of life is triadic, that truth is found not in singular extremes but in balanced harmony. Pause once more. Let your eyes linger on the flames. Hear the faint crackle of wax melting, the almost inaudible hiss of wicks consuming oil. Smell the faint sweetness of burning tallow, sharp yet comforting. You realize that these candles, humble as they are, carry the weight of centuries. Every Mason who has entered a lodge has seen them, has stood in their glow, has felt their silent instruction. They are the most constant of companions, the most patient of teachers. And in their light, the room ceases to be ordinary. The chairs, the tools, the banners, all of it is gathered into the geometry of the 3 flames. The lodge is transformed. The lodge grows quiet again. The 3 flames burn steadily, but the silence between their glow feels heavier now, charged with memory. The master lowers his gaze. The wardens bow their heads. It is time to recall a story, not from scripture exactly, not from history exactly, but from the space between the two. A legend carried in whispers, enacted in ritual, woven so tightly into Masonry that no brother can escape it. The story of Hiram Abiff. You hear the name first in fragments. Hiram, the master builder, the architect of Solomon's temple, chosen for his skill, trusted with sacred knowledge. Abiff, a craftsman so gifted that even kings sought his service. Scripture mentions him briefly, a man of Tyre who cast the bronze pillars and vessels of the temple. But Masonry tells more, much more. According to the legend, Hiram held a secret. Not a secret of wages or tools, but of divine geometry itself, the master's word, the key to all building, perhaps to all wisdom. and because of this, he became the target of envy and treachery. 3 fellow workmen, impatient and ambitious, demanded the secret from him. They confronted him at the gates of the temple, one after another, threatening violence if he did not yield. But Hiram refused. Fidelity was his oath. Loyalty was his measure. Better to die than betray what was entrusted to him. And so he did. Struck once, twice, thrice, Hiram fell. His blood darkened the unfinished stones. His body was hidden, buried hastily in a shallow grave. The secret of the Master's word, if he held it, was lost with him. The legend does not end there. For in ritual, the brethren search for Hiram. They seek his grave. They find his body. And in the drama, the initiate himself becomes Hiram, struck down, symbolically slain, then raised again by the grip of a brother's hand. It is the most solemn, the most profound of all Masonic rites. Death and resurrection, loss and recovery, betrayal and fidelity. Pause. Feel the weight of that story. It is not history in the ordinary sense. Scholars will tell you that Hiram Abiff, as Masonry tells it, never lived. Yet in another sense, he is more real than any king or prophet. For he is the embodiment of ideals, loyalty unto death, secrecy unto the grave, the refusal to betray trust even in the face of fear. That is why the legend matters. It is not about whether Hiram truly existed, but about what he represents. Every Mason who undergoes the master's degree enacts this legend. Blindfolded, led, struck down, buried, and raised, he does not merely hear the story, he lives it. For a moment, he is Hiram. For a moment, he tastes betrayal, feels death, and experiences the miracle of resurrection. It is a rite of passage more profound than words can explain. And what of the secret? What of the Master's word, lost with Hiram? Here lies the haunting beauty of the legend. It is never truly recovered. Substituted words are given, symbols offered in place of certainty. But the true word, the final secret, remains beyond reach. The initiate learns that ultimate truth cannot be handed down, cannot be spoken aloud. It must be sought, built, discovered within. The legend is not about possession but about pursuit. Now imagine the effect of this upon the brotherhood. Year after year, century after century, men enact this legend. They die and rise, symbolically, in the footsteps of Hiram. They learn that fidelity is more precious than life, that death is not the end, that the greatest truths remain veiled. It is not dogma but drama, not creed but myth. And myth has a power deeper than any sermon. But Hiram is not the only legend. Other stories, too, thread through Masonry. Tales of Enoch, who was said to have carved divine wisdom into pillars before the flood, so that it would not be lost. Stories of hidden vaults beneath the temple, where treasures or tablets or wisdom itself were concealed. Myths of wandering builders who carried secret knowledge from Egypt to Israel to Greece, preserving fragments of ancient truth in symbols of stone. Outsiders heard these stories and grew uneasy. Were the Masons claiming secret descent from Solomon's builders? Were they hinting at knowledge hidden from church and crown? Did they possess keys to lost wisdom, alchemy, Kabbalah, forbidden lore? The imagination of the world beyond the lodge seized upon these legends, and conspiracy was born. And yet, inside the lodge, the legends are not claims of power but mirrors of meaning. They are not about possession of secrets, but about reverence for them. They are ways of saying, truth is ancient, fragile, hidden, and must be sought with reverence and fidelity. Pause again. The lodge is dim, the 3 lights burning steady, the silence thick. You hear the legend of Hiram, and though centuries separate you from its origins, you feel its sting. Betrayal, death, loss. But then, the hand of a brother lifts you, and you rise. The legend has become your story. And so, the hidden legends remain. Not history as the world counts history, but history of the soul. Not facts, but truths. They are whispered, acted, lived, and in the living they become real. The silence of the legend lingers, heavy as a tomb. And then, bang! The gavel strikes once, sharp and deliberate. The sound cuts the air, startling in its simplicity, yet resonant as thunder. It is more than a knock, it is a heartbeat, a summons, a command. The brothers straighten in their seats, eyes turning toward the east. The room is alive again. Sound is never casual in the lodge. It is deliberate, sculpted, purposeful. Every rap of the gavel, every word spoken, every pause of silence carries weight. To an outsider, it may seem theatrical, even strange. But to those within, the sounds are the very skeleton of ritual, the rhythm upon which meaning hangs. Listen closely. The ritual begins in hush. Voices are low, solemn, measured. Words are spoken not as conversation but as invocation, drawn out with cadence, as though chanting. They are meant to be remembered, repeated, preserved. In the repetition lies continuity. In the cadence lies gravity. The gavel interrupts at intervals. One rap calls to order, 2 raps summon attention, 3 raps unite the lodge in standing. The sound is wood on wood, yet it reverberates through the bones of every man present. It is a reminder, order, discipline, unity. The world outside may be chaos, but here the rhythm of the gavel binds all to the same beat. Then there are the prayers. Imagine the master's voice rising, slow and deliberate, speaking words of humility and reverence. The room bows its head. Some lips move silently, others remain still. It does not matter. The sound itself, the tone of reverence, the pause of listening, is the prayer. It rises with the smoke of candles, fills the space with a harmony that is less about melody than about intention. Sometimes a chant follows. Not music in the worldly sense, but measured phrases spoken in unison. The brothers repeat ancient lines, voices weaving together until individuality disappears. What one voice cannot achieve, many can. It is not about beauty, it is about resonance. Words spoken together vibrate differently. They enter the body. They settle into memory. Now imagine the silence that follows. The sudden absence of sound after chant or prayer is itself a sound, heavy, humming. You feel your ears strain into it, listening for echoes. This silence is not empty. It is a vessel into which meaning pours. Other sounds emerge. The soft shuffle of feet as initiates are guided around the lodge. The faint scrape of chair legs as brothers rise together. The rustle of aprons, the muted thud of a mallet upon stone during a symbolic lesson. All are quiet, yet all are deliberate, carefully woven into the fabric of ritual. And then, the most haunting sound of all, the obligation. A single voice, trembling yet firm, repeats words spoken by countless others before him. The sound of an oath, carried on breath, spoken into silence, is unlike any other. It is the sound of binding, the sound of a man stepping into destiny. In that trembling voice, you hear centuries of echo, every oath layered upon the next, a chorus of the dead speaking through the living. There is rhythm, too, in the initiation itself. The questions and answers between master and candidate. The dialogue, rehearsed for generations, falls into patterns like verse. Call and response, command and reply. It is music of a kind, ritual music without melody, but with structure and inevitability. And finally, there are the closing sounds. The gavel again, steady as ever. The final words of dismissal. The lodge returning to stillness. Brothers' voices relax, laughter returns, chairs scrape more carelessly, footsteps grow louder. Ritual sound fades into ordinary sound, and the lodge becomes a room once more. But the echo remains. The gavel's knock still hums in your chest. The chant still vibrates in your ears. The oath still lingers in the air, as though the walls themselves remember. Pause and reflect. Why does Masonry lean so heavily upon sound? Because sound moves where sight cannot. The blindfolded candidate may see nothing, but he hears everything, the knock, the question, the oath, the gavel. Sound reaches into darkness. Sound shapes memory. Long after symbols fade from vision, the rhythm of ritual words remains. Think of the medieval builders once more. On scaffolds high above the earth, words were shouted, chants sung, signals given by hammers striking stone. Work itself had rhythm, had sound. Masonry has preserved that rhythm, turned it inward, made it the heartbeat of initiation. The lodge is not silent. It is music made of knocks and pauses, of prayer and chant, of voices rising together in solemnity. It is the sound of order in a chaotic world. And when you step back into the night, when the lodge door closes behind you and the street sounds return, the barking dog, the rolling cart, the chatter of passers-by, you carry those other sounds within you. They hum beneath the noise of the world, steady as the beat of a hidden drum. The sounds of ritual are not forgotten. They are engraved, not on stone, but on memory. The lodge grows still once more. The sounds retreat into silence, the candles burn lower, shadows stretch across the tiled floor. You sit within that silence, feeling its weight, and slowly the realization rises. Secrecy itself is the most constant ritual here. Every gesture, every oath, every word is guarded. Nothing leaves these walls unspoken. No outsider sees the ritual. No uninitiated ear hears the chant. Why? It is the question outsiders ask most, and the one Masons answer least. And therein lies the paradox. Secrecy is both the shroud and the beacon of Masonry. To understand it, we must step back. In the beginning, secrecy was simple necessity. Imagine the stonemasons of the Middle Ages, wandering from town to town, offering their labor. Their craft was their livelihood. To give away its methods, how to cut an arch that would not fall, how to set a vault that would not crack, was to give away their bread. So they guarded their techniques. They devised grips and words to prove their training, so impostors could not steal their wages. Their secrecy was not mysterious then, it was practical, survival itself. But as stone gave way to symbol, as the lodge became a place not of labor but of allegory, secrecy transformed. What was once about wages became about wisdom. The grips and words remained, but now they were shields not for craft but for meaning. And here lies the first answer: secrecy protects experience. Imagine if you had walked into the lodge knowing every gesture, every symbol, every word. The blindfold would be empty. The oath would be hollow. The revelation of light would be no revelation at all. Secrecy ensures that each man's journey is authentic, that the drama strikes with full force, that mystery is preserved until the moment of unveiling. Without secrecy, initiation is theater without audience, a play whose ending is spoiled before the first act. But secrecy is more than preservation. It is transformation. The oath of silence you took was not about hiding trivial facts, it was about shaping you. To keep a secret is to learn restraint, discipline, humility. In a world where men boast of every deed, Masonry teaches the opposite: what is most sacred must be guarded. Silence becomes virtue. The brother who can keep a secret can be trusted in greater things. Pause and reflect. How rare is true secrecy in the world outside? How many conversations are betrayed? How many confidences broken? How many oaths forgotten? The Mason learns to live differently, to speak less, to weigh more. The secrecy of the lodge becomes a rehearsal for secrecy in life, the kind that protects friendships, honors promises, preserves dignity. And yet, secrecy is not only inward, it is outward as well. For centuries, Masonry has been eyed with suspicion precisely because of its closed doors. Outsiders see shadows and imagine monsters. They hear of oaths and picture conspiracies. They glimpse handshakes and dream of cabals controlling nations. Monarchs ban lodges, fearing secret gatherings. Churches denounce them, fearing hidden heresies. Pamphlets spread rumors of devil worship, orgies, treason. All because of secrecy. Here lies the irony. The very thing that protected Masonry also condemned it in the eyes of the world. And yet secrecy endured. Why? Because Masonry understood that its value lay not in public applause but in private transformation. To be misunderstood outside was a price worth paying for the integrity of the inner work. But secrecy has another layer still, one deeper, more haunting. It teaches that truth itself is not easily given. The Master's word, lost with Hiram, is never fully recovered. Substitute words are offered, symbols are shown, allegories are enacted, but the true word remains hidden. Why? Because truth is not a coin to be handed over. It must be sought, built, discovered. Secrecy is not about denying truth, it is about dignifying it, reminding us that what is most precious cannot be cheapened by casual speech. Now imagine the effect upon the initiate. He leaves the lodge knowing symbols he cannot share, words he cannot utter, gestures he cannot display except in secret. At first, it may feel like burden, even frustration. But over time, it becomes power. He learns that silence can be strength. That not all must be revealed. That mystery itself has value. This is why secrecy endures. Not to hide sinister plots, not to wield hidden power, but to preserve the sanctity of experience, to shape the character of men, to remind them that the deepest truths are veiled. Pause once more. Look around the lodge. The brothers are silent, eyes lowered, hands still. Outside, suspicion burns. Inside, secrecy binds. And in that binding, a brotherhood is formed. For what is a secret, truly, but trust? The door of the lodge closes behind you, and the world greets you again. Horses clatter over cobblestones. Merchants haggle in markets. Priests preach in pulpits. Soldiers march. And yet you carry something now that none of them can see, the memory of oaths, the feel of symbols, the sound of rituals still echoing inside your chest. The question arises, what happens when this hidden brotherhood walks in the open world? How does Masonry, bound by secrecy, live within society, which thrives on spectacle? The answer is written in centuries of tension, influence, suspicion, and inspiration. From its earliest days, Masonry was both ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary in that its members were men of daily trades, merchants, artisans, printers, bakers, lawyers. Extraordinary in that within the lodge, they stood equal, calling each other brother regardless of rank. This equality was shocking in a world defined by hierarchy. Outside, a nobleman would never clasp the hand of a tailor as an equal. Inside, he must. The tiled floor erased the distinctions of birth, leaving only the bond of oath. This was Masonry's first quiet revolution, not political, but social. A fraternity where men could meet across divides of class and creed, bound not by wealth but by symbol. As the Enlightenment dawned, the fraternity found itself at the crossroads of ideas. Coffee houses rang with talk of reason, liberty, and progress. Lodges echoed with similar discussions, but clothed in allegory, hidden in ritual. Philosophers found a home there, scientists too. Benjamin Franklin printed Masonic texts in Philadelphia. Voltaire was initiated in Paris. Mozart wove Masonic symbolism into his music. These men were not conspirators in shadows, but seekers of light, using Masonry as both metaphor and fellowship. Yet suspicion followed close. Churches thundered that Masonry was irreligion in disguise. Monarchs feared it was revolution cloaked in aprons. In France, some whispered that the sparks of the revolution were kindled in lodges where men dared to speak of liberty as equals. In America, critics claimed the revolution itself bore the stamp of Masonry, with Washington and many founders wearing the square and compass beneath their uniforms. Was it true? Did Masonry drive revolutions? Or was it simply a mirror, reflecting the hunger for equality and truth already stirring in society? Perhaps both. The fraternity itself insists that it is not political, not a party, not a movement. And yet, by bringing men together in secrecy, in equality, in brotherhood, it created the soil where revolutionary ideas could germinate. Not orders to action, but encouragement to think. Not plots, but principles. Masonry gave its members a space to imagine a society built on reason and virtue, not birth and privilege. And sometimes, those imaginations spilled into the streets. Consider the paradox. The very secrecy that fueled suspicion also protected freedom of thought. In a world of censorship, the lodge became a sanctuary. Here, ideas could be spoken without fear of inquisitors or kings. The square and compass shielded discussion, allowing men to explore without danger. It was not rebellion by decree, but liberty by conversation. But not all was harmony. In some places, Masonry was embraced, its lodges filled with nobles and scholars. In others, it was hunted, its members jailed, its meetings banned. Popes issued bulls against it. Kings ordered its suppression. And yet, the fraternity endured, moving quietly underground, never vanishing, always resurfacing. Pause and consider, what does this persistence reveal? That Masonry's strength was never in its power over nations, but in its power over men. A Mason might lose his lodge to persecution, but he carried its light within him. He bore it into courts, into armies, into academies, into marketplaces. Society was shaped not by Masonry as institution, but by Masons as men transformed. And so, Masonry became both visible and invisible. Visible in architecture, in symbols carved discreetly into public buildings, in cornerstones laid with square and compass. Invisible in the lives of men who lived its lessons quietly, building temples not of stone but of conduct. Outsiders saw plots. Insiders felt fraternity. Think of the 19th century, when suspicion reached fever pitch in America. The disappearance of William Morgan, who threatened to reveal Masonic secrets, sparked outrage. Newspapers thundered that Masonry was a menace to democracy, a cabal above the law. An anti-Masonic party was even formed, the first third party in U.S. history. And yet Masonry survived. Why? Because beneath the suspicion lay the quieter truth, that most lodges were not nests of conspiracy, but circles of fellowship, where men practiced charity, self-discipline, and brotherhood. This is the rhythm of Masonry and society: suspicion, fascination, persecution, endurance. Always the same dance, century after century. And still the lodges remained. They opened hospitals, funded schools, cared for widows and orphans. They marched in parades, laid cornerstones, built halls that doubled as community centers. For every rumor of conspiracy, there was a visible act of charity. For every accusation of secrecy, there was an open hand to the poor. Pause again. Picture yourself leaving the lodge after a meeting. The night is cool, the stars steady. You walk past neighbors who eye you with curiosity, perhaps suspicion. They wonder what passes behind the closed doors. You say nothing, for your oath binds you. But in your daily life, in your dealings, in your conduct, you live the lessons of the lodge. Society may never see the rituals, but it feels their echoes in how you act. This is Masonry's place in society, not puppet strings behind thrones, but quiet influence through the lives of men who strive to live by square and compass. And yet, the paradox remains. Secrecy ensures misunderstanding. Brotherhood invites suspicion. But perhaps that is the price of transformation, to be misunderstood by the many, so that the few may be changed. The candles burn low, their wax rivers frozen on the altar's edge. The tiled floor gleams faintly in the dying light. Around you, the lodge is hushed, the ritual complete, the brethren silent in reflection. It feels as though the air itself exhales, as though centuries of history have paused to listen. This is the end of the journey, but not an end in the ordinary sense. For Masonry teaches that nothing ends, it transforms. What have we seen? We began in darkness, in mystery, where hammers struck 3 times like the heartbeat of history. We traced Masonry's roots to medieval guilds of builders, men who guarded their craft as fiercely as a knight guards his sword. We watched as stone gave way to symbol, as the square and compass moved from cathedral scaffolds to lodge altars. We walked across the mosaic pavement, paused beneath the three lights, listened to the silence broken by oaths and chants. We learned the story of Hiram, of betrayal and resurrection, and carried his lesson into the sound of gavels, the whispers of gestures, the glare of suspicion from the outside world. And through it all, one thread endured: secrecy. Not secrecy for its own sake, but secrecy as a vessel, a shell around meaning. Ask yourself, what is Masonry really hiding? Is it a plot, a doctrine, a vault of ancient knowledge? Or is the secret something quieter, something hidden in plain sight? The answer, whispered through centuries, is this: the secret is not a thing, but a way. A way of building order from chaos. A way of shaping men as masons once shaped stone. A way of reminding the human heart that life is not random noise but a structure that can be raised, measured, perfected. Consider the tools. To the outsider, they are wood and metal. To the Mason, they are guides for living, the square for justice, the compass for restraint, the plumb for uprightness, the level for equality. Secrets? Perhaps not. Yet when lived, they build something secret indeed, an inner temple, invisible to the world, indestructible by time. Consider the rituals. To the outsider, they are play-acting, strange words, odd gestures. To the Mason, they are mirrors of the soul, dramas of life and death, echoes of ancient myths that shape him from within. Secrets? Perhaps not. Yet what happens inside a man when he is blindfolded, struck down, and raised again, that is secret, for it cannot be told, only lived. Consider the lodge. To the outsider, it is a room behind closed doors, guarded, suspicious. To the Mason, it is a sanctuary of order, a reflection of Solomon's temple, a geometry of light and shadow that turns men into brothers. Secrets? Perhaps not. Yet the sense of belonging, of standing equal where the world divides, of being recognized by signs invisible to others, that is secret, for it cannot be explained, only felt. This is the final paradox of Masonry. Its secrets are not hidden from the world, but hidden in the world. They are the lessons of honesty, restraint, equality, integrity. They are available to all, yet revealed fully only to those who live them. Pause and breathe. You feel the air of the lodge heavy with centuries, with oaths, with the silence of men who guarded these lessons through war, persecution, suspicion, and scorn. And yet, here they remain. Not conspiracies, but virtues. Not plots, but principles. Not chaos, but order. That is what Masonry sought, order. In a world of noise, silence. In a world of division, brotherhood. In a world of ruin, a temple, not of stone, but of meaning. And now the gavel strikes one last time. The brethren rise. The candles are extinguished, one by one, until only a faint glow remains. The lodge dissolves into ordinary walls again. The aprons are folded, the tools return to their chests, the chairs scrape back across the floor. And yet, the room is not empty. It hums with memory. It breathes with echoes. You step outside. The night is cool, the stars sharp above you. The world is the same as before, carts rumble, dogs bark, taverns shout. Yet you are not the same. You carry within you a silence that cannot be spoken, a light that cannot be extinguished. This is the secret. Not hidden documents, not ancient treasures, not conspiracies in shadowed rooms. The true secret is the transformation itself, the order drawn from the chaos of life. And so, as the centuries turn, as empires rise and fall, as revolutions ignite and fade, the brotherhood endures. Not because it holds power, but because it holds meaning. Not because it controls kings, but because it teaches men to rule themselves. Shall we then strip away the secrecy? Shall we shout the oaths in the streets, Publish the grips and pamphlets, explain the rituals line by line? Perhaps. But if we do, we discover the final irony: the world will still not understand. For Masonry's secret is not in the words or the gestures or the tools. It is in the silence they create within, in the order they build in a man's soul. The true secret is lived, not spoken. The lodge is closed. The journey complete. And yet, it is also beginning. For every Mason who steps into darkness, swears the oath, and is raised to light, carries the work onward, stone by stone, life by life. And so, the story remains unfinished. The gavel has fallen. The candles have died. The silence is full. And as you drift from this chamber of wax and stone, of whispers and symbols, of secrets and truths, may you carry with you the quiet order of the craft, and may it guide you gently into dreams.